Fire and water do not mix, neither can you mix judgment of others with the desire to repent. St. John Climacus. Aren's desk was clean, but not in the way of obsessives. Each item had a sanctioned place, the biometric stylus parallel to the edge, the graphite grey audit terminal aligned with the central vein of the desk's composite grain. The only asymmetry allowed was the brass insignia of the Department of Morality and Inner Sanctity, which hung slightly askew from the overhead light fixture. This was not a flaw. It was a symbol. Authority was never meant to feel centered. At precisely 8:01, a case file appeared on her terminal, a physical folder, not digital. That alone was a disturbance. She hesitated. The embossed stamp read, Level 3 Restricted, VAA, routed through ORP. She blinked. Voluntary Atonement Applicant. She hadn't seen one in 4 years. The Office of Reconciliatory Processing still existed? She thought it had been absorbed or quietly collapsed like the Department of Dream Analysis. She keyed in her clearance sequence. The folder unlocked with a hiss. Subject, Venn, Elias. Behavioral rating, N. A notes, initiated self-disclosure under legacy protocol. Expressed intent to release moral burden per BCP 27C. Subject maintains compliance, but demonstrates high-risk language patterns. Aren's chest tightened. The name meant nothing at first. Then it did. She opened a compartment under her desk and retrieved a grey cloth, standard issue for sweat, spills, or small lapses. She pressed it to her palms and waited for the chill to pass. Venn, Elias. They had shared a wall in the board-in sector. He had laughed with his whole chest. Too loud. Too often. She had reported him once for volume, then again for laughter duration. The third time wasn't procedural. She closed the file. Not physically, just emotionally. She minimized the screen, sipped water, straightened the stylus. Her composite integrity index blinked in the corner of the screen. 99.4A warning. A reminder. Anything below 97.8 triggered automatic review. And this case, this relic from an abandoned system, was the kind of thing that dragged metrics into shadow. She opened it again and let the wait begin. Aren scrolled further into the file. Surveillance summaries, linguistic audits, affinity drift reports. Nothing unusual. Then she saw the attachment. ORP, Form 9. K, Self-Designated Harm Event Index, submitted voluntarily. Her eyes scanned the entry. Her throat tightened before her mind caught up. I failed to act when it mattered. My brother was dying. I stayed with him past visiting limits. I hoped someone might see it, not to punish me, but to understand. Instead, I was flagged. They removed me from the ward. He died without a hand to hold. The line sat there like a heat blister. No timestamp, no names, just familiarity. She reached for the stylus but didn't touch it. She hadn't known it was his brother. The report had just said, Subject engaged in unauthorized physical proximity outside curfew protocol. Potential breach of contagion barrier. She remembered, hesitating. It was her first major infraction logged independently. Her supervisor had commended the clean escalation path. She'd celebrated with a synthetic cider and a higher clearance badge. She hadn't thought about it since. Until now. Elias had been 16, his brother maybe 10. No appeal, no response log, just a blank box. Subject was informed. No resistance. She closed the file. Her terminal chirped. A soft reminder. You have been idle for 90 seconds. Recalibrate now to preserve index. Aren didn't move. She sat, eyes open, in a stillness that felt heavier than silence. By protocol, Aren's workday ended at 1900 hours. By habit, she left at 1904 hours. It gave the impression of selflessness without suggesting inefficiency. The evening corridor smelled of scrubbed metal and ionized air, clean in a way that felt post-human. The kind of clean that forgot people ever made noise, or loved, or bled. She scanned her wrist at the exit gate. A green pulse. Clearance maintained. Outside, the light was lavender. Artificial dusk. The ministry controlled sunlight now, not out of necessity, but for rhythm regulation. It kept citizens emotionally predictable. She preferred it, usually. The sky always knew when to stop. Tonight, it didn't help. The walk to her domicile unit passed through Zone F, moderate habitation sector. The buildings were identical, but coloured in 4 shades of bureaucratic optimism: clay, graphite, fog, and renewal. Aren lived in fog 12. She took a longer route. Unusual. And then she saw it, a single line of chalk, white, crude, drawn low across a concrete retaining wall. A child's hand, a prank. Number A phrase, not a slogan, not propaganda, not even an argument, just 5 words. He died while I waited. Her feet froze. It wasn't addressed. It wasn't signed. It was out of place. A crack in the surface. She looked around. No surveillance bulbs blinked red. No drones chirped. That was odd. Then a soft sound, barely audible, behind her. A child, maybe 6, running with chalk tucked into their sleeve. She turned. They vanished around a corner before she could speak. If she were compliant, she would report it. Unauthorized messaging medium subdermal graffiti. A Class 2 expression violation. She stood still. The chalk flake still crumbled against the wall. Aren's fingers twitched. She did not report it. Aren woke at 5:31 a.m., 1 minute before the regulated chime. She always did. The window screen displayed simulated sunrise, gradient orange, rotating birdsong selected from Archive A, 27 Mediterranean variant. The scent diffuser misted citrus clarity into the recycled air. She sat up, checked her palm. Index still 99.4. She dressed, recited her allegiance phrase, and cued the morning briefing bulletin on the wall. The bulletin blinked, then froze. Static. Then a male voice. Not the usual synthetic tone. It sounded human. To the loyal servants of order, be advised that truth is an aggregate variable, subject to alignment with national rhythm metrics. Truth is not fixed. Truth is calibrated. The screen flickered. The words repeated. Not a glitch. A loop. Truth is calibrated. Truth is calibrated. Truth is... She tapped the glass. The image snapped back into form. A female voice resumed the bulletin, chipper and sterile. And remember, transparency is trust. Report anomalies promptly for the betterment of all. But the phrase stayed with her. Truth is calibrated. She stared at the wall for 10 seconds longer than allowed under BCP focus duration 4E. She got up, dressed mechanically, and prepared to leave for work. At the door, her exit panel requested a facial scan. She hesitated. It blinked. Truth is calibrated. Only in her head, or was it? The door slid open anyway. She was summoned mid-morning. Not urgent, not optional. Tier 4 personnel are required to complete monthly empathic reflection to maintain moral hygiene and prevent cognitive sedimentation. She followed the corridor down to Subdivision E, Reflective Analytics. The walls here were round, soft-coloured, padded not for safety but serenity. She entered Pod 7. The door hissed shut behind her. The screen in front of her displayed a circle, pale blue. A voice spoke, genderless, low. "Welcome, Auditor Aren. You are in a safe and compliant space." "Let us begin." The screen pulsed. "Describe a time when you witnessed an injustice and acted." Aren's tongue felt like sand. She tried to speak, but the pod waited for sincerity, not noise. The sensor would detect evasion, hesitation, surface-level memory. She cleared her throat. "I once logged a Class C proximity breach." Pulse of approval, but no prompt to continue. "Elaborate." She swallowed. "Subject remained in a restricted corridor, unauthorized contact, repeated offense." The screen pulsed again. "What was the outcome of your report?" "Removal, subject reassigned, behavioral index downgraded." "How did that make you feel?" Silence. She looked down at her hands. Pale. Still. She remembered the boy's name. Niko. She remembered Elias shouting. Not loud, but raw. She remembered not writing that part in the report. "I didn't feel," she said. The screen dimmed. Voice unchanged. "Suppression of feeling is a form of feeling. Truth resides in accurate response, not avoidance." Aren blinked. That wasn't the usual phrasing. The pod was quiet. No feedback pulse, no approval. Then, "Would you act the same way again?" That was not standard. She sat very still. "Who wrote this script?" she asked. The pod did not answer, just the low hum of the air system. Then the voice again, softer, almost kind. "Some harm cannot be undone, but it can be absorbed." Her breath caught. Who programmed this? The pod door opened. Her session was over. On the way back to her terminal, she noticed a maintenance bot scrubbing a chalk mark off the corridor floor. Just one word, faint but clear before it vanished. Absorbed. The room was designed to have no memory. White walls, no corners, lighting without source, no visible door after entry. ORP interview chamber number 4. Aren stood behind the one-way partition, watching him first. Elias Venn sat calmly, hands folded, posture neutral, not submissive, not performative. He looked older than the last time she saw him, 10 years ago. More. Still young, but carved now, as if time had stopped being linear for him and started becoming weight. The attendant gave a nod. The door opened. Aren stepped inside. She sat across from him. For a moment, they simply regarded one another. "Auditor," Elias said, voice even, not cold. "Venn," Aren returned, defaulting to formality. She activated the voice recorder. The light glowed red. "This session is being archived under Internal Morality Compliance Review, file designation 11H/voluntary. Per departmental standard, I am required to inform you that expressive deviation, emotional projection, or theological framing are in violation of behavioral decorum and will be flagged accordingly." Elias smiled, just enough to notice. "Understood." "Why did you submit yourself to the Office of Reconciliatory Processing?" she asked. He took a long breath before speaking. "Because I did harm," he said. "And the system didn't notice." Aren's hand twitched slightly at the stylus. She didn't write that down. "Do you believe your actions warrant punitive escalation?" she asked. "No." Then what outcome do you seek? To name what happened, to be accountable, even if no one asks. A beat. There is no protocol for internal reconciliation, she said. I'm aware. You're creating instability in a calibrated system. Yes. Another pause. She could feel the pulse of the room change, almost imperceptibly, like the air pressure had risen by a fraction. You're aware, she said in T. Thereby, T-Sisis said that your file will remain open indefinitely. No resolution, no reinstatement. You'll be listed as anomalous. Elias nodded. It's still better than silence. Then he leaned forward just slightly. I've already paid for what I did, but I hadn't yet spoken to the one person who watched it happen. Aren's eyes didn't move. You don't need to confirm anything, he added. I'm not here to collect shame. I'm here because not saying anything once nearly destroyed me. I won't do it twice. She stood up, reflexively, too quickly. The recorder chirped. She tapped it off. The light went dark. She turned without a word and left the chamber. Outside, the white noise in the hallway sounded louder than it should, or maybe she just couldn't tune it out anymore. Aren's fingers hovered over the audit panel like they belonged to someone else. The Elias Venn case file blinked open across her terminal. 8 metadata tabs, 3 classified notes, 1 flagged anomaly, all still marked active. Her directive was simple. Code it as non-resolvable moral redundancy. The system would neutralize the file. Neither escalation nor expungement. A slow erasure. No blood on her hands. She selected the tag. Override. Requested. Archive neutrality. A prompt blinked. Please confirm. Deletion of all effective weight indicators. Her hand trembled. Just slightly. She froze. A shiver. Low and deep. Not cold. Not fear. Something else. Her eyes flicked to the surveillance panel above her door. The red light was dim. Not off. They're watching, or they're pretending to watch, or they've stopped watching entirely, which is worse. She cancelled the request. Her chest tightened. This wasn't how it was supposed to work. Moral clarity was supposed to come before action. Action followed compliance. Thought was optional. But now there was wait. Not a policy. Not a reportable metric. Not a code she could flag. Something was sitting in her, not guilt. She could handle guilt. Guilt was measurable. This was something without a tag. She opened the internal diagnostics log, searched her own user ID. Audit log for A. Thalos. Tier 4. Recent anomalies. Elevated respiration during compliance check. Paused keystroke latency, 3.7 seconds, during empathy response window. Internal session flagged by Pod 7. Unresolved affect detected. Recommended. Ethics consultation Tier 1. She closed the window. Hard. Her screen blinked again. Another request. Not from the department. From internal memory cache. A prompt she hadn't queued. A text box. 4 words. Do you feel it? She stared. The text vanished. No trace in the cache. No log entry. Nothing. She stood. Walked to the mirror. She rarely looked at herself during working hours. It wasn't encouraged. Now her reflection seemed untranslated, not out of compliance, just out of language. Her palm hovered near her terminal, ready to shut it all down, to classify the case, to remove the weight. But she didn't. Instead, she whispered, not loud, not for the recorder. I think I'm unsealing. She didn't mean tears. Later that evening, Aren sat at her table, untouched ration in front of her. Light dimmed to the lowest departmental setting. She had left her terminal on. This was already a breach of efficiency code. Her audit tray blinked with requests. Routine. Normal. Predictable. She did nothing. Her hands rested flat on the surface of the table, not clenched, not calm, just there. It felt like her body was waiting for her to become someone again. In the corner of the room, the reflection panel remained dark, off by her own manual override. She hated mirrors now, not because they lied, but because they didn't. She whispered into the room, half a thought, half a confession. I think I'm unsealing. The word fell out of her like steam from a pressurized lock. It felt right, not poetic, not dramatic, just accurate. She expected the room to reject it, for the wall to chirp or the system to ping her for unsanctioned language, but there was only silence. She remembered a boy with fevered eyes, alone in a white room, and another boy, older, desperate, being pulled away by masked officers. She remembered the way Elias looked at her during the interview. He had not looked at her with blame. He had looked at her with memory, not as a weapon, not even as a plea, but as something whole. The kind of memory you offer someone, not to punish them, but to let them be real again. Her screen blinked. An update from the department. Mandatory group integrity sessions scheduled for the following morning. Morality retention workshop. She tapped decline. That was not allowed. A quiet prompt appeared. Decline registered. Continue in silence. She didn't respond. She just let the screen fade. She stayed there for hours, not hiding, not obeying, just unsealing. Aren did attend. Not because she changed her mind, because the system let her decline. And then it sent an invitation. Optional observation assignment. Compliance reabsorption process. Sector 9B. Status. Voluntary. Purpose. Restore internal rhythm through passive proximity. The system was testing her. She knew that. Reabsorption wasn't punishment. It was mercy. A clean white box with a chair, a screen, and a script. Those flagged for deviation, emotion without cause, memory without report, morality without sanction, were sat in the box and slowly, quietly retrained. She had filed at least 6 citizens into reabsorption over the past 2 years. Now she stood behind the one-way glass. Inside the room sat a woman in her early 50s. Neat posture, blank eyes. Her name was Aren, a former Tier 2 educator who had been flagged for symbolic ambiguity after writing the phrase, "Tomorrow is not given, it is allowed," on a student worksheet. The screen lit up in front of Aren. A soft voice, synthetic and slow, began to speak. "You are safe. You were mistaken. Your intentions are not useful, but your pattern can be restored." Aren had heard the script before. She'd helped refine it. But now something in her rebelled. It wasn't the words. It was the nothingness they wrapped around the soul. Each phrase was like a bandage over a wound that hadn't been allowed to bleed. Aren blinked. Her lips moved. The script prompted her to repeat. "I am still useful." The room was silent. "I am still useful." Again, louder. Aren turned from the glass. There was a clipboard on the wall for observers to fill out. Reabsorption notes. Effectiveness index. She picked up the pen. Her hand hovered. Then wrote, "Subject appears stabilized." She paused. Then added, "System remains unchanged." A second later, the clipboard was yanked from her hand. A clerk stood behind her, expressionless. Tier 4 personnel do not annotate system integrity. Aren nodded, then said quietly, "You're right," and walked away. The file should have been gone. After her silence, after the ethics prompt, after the clipboard, it should have been sealed off, purged, marked compromised auditor access. Instead, it lingered, still open, still hers, like the system was waiting. Maybe it didn't believe she'd do anything with it. Maybe it wanted her to try. She bypassed the terminal this time. Didn't risk a flagged keystroke. Instead, she went to the vault, the cold heart of data storage, buried beneath the department's central chamber. Technicians weren't allowed in without a 2-factor clearance. She had 3. The vault was a circular room with no shadows. Light came from the seams. Rows of terminals sat like heads bowed in prayer. No voices here, only humming. She keyed in Elias's file. Venn, Elias, VAA, ORP, hold status, pending escalation. Then she did something not sanctioned. She duplicated it, not for transmission, not for leak, just for holding. Off-grid, offline, in a cold corner of the department where no one thought to look anymore. The department called this echoing, illegal, untraceable, a firing offence. But Aren wasn't hiding him. She was preserving him. Because in this world, to preserve memory is to resist erasure, and she couldn't destroy the past just to keep her present clean. The screen flickered once. Then came the message. Not typed, not expected, just words, fading in like breath on glass. You remembered. Her heart seized. No signature, no trace. She backed out of the vault. And that was when she saw him. Elias, standing in the corridor. Not restrained, not escorted, just there. Eyes calm. Not surprised. She walked toward him. How did you? You brought me here, he said. She said nothing. Not because she lacked words, but because no words were needed. He held out something in his hand. A small folded square of thick paper. You should read it later. She took it. They'll come for me, she said. They already have, Elias replied. A pause. Then, not softly, but clearly. Let it end, Aren. Not so something else can begin, just let it end. Then he turned and walked past her, out into the corridor, disappearing into the sterile light. She didn't stop him. Aren returned to her quarters as the city dimmed itself into curfew. No alarms had gone off, no summons, no lockout. The department wasn't ignoring her. It was watching, waiting, for the outcome they'd already calculated. She sat on her bed and unfolded Elias's note. The paper was heavier than it looked. The ink, real ink, had bled slightly into the grain. There was no greeting, no sign-off, just a paragraph. There is no counterweight to judgment. It doesn't need one. It collapses on its own. But memory, that has weight. It presses, it aches, it shapes what we become. I gave mine to you not to punish, but to preserve, because if even one person can remember rightly, the silence loses. She folded it again, tighter, into a small, worn square. Then she did the thing that sealed her choice, not for the department, not for Elias, but for herself. She opened her terminal, typed in a new entry, no case number, no subject ID, just a single line of plain text. I remember Niko Venn. She clicked Save to Public Echo. The screen asked for confirmation. She pressed yes. Her integrity index dropped instantly, from 99.4 to 63.7. Critical deviation. Her door clicked locked. The lights shifted to pale red. The hum of the wall began to pulse, measured, shallow, indifferent. She sat still. She had preserved the memory. And for the first time, she was no longer part of the machine. She was part of the record. 1 year later, The Department of Morality and Inner Sanctity no longer issued integrity indexes to Tier 4 personnel, not because the policy changed, because the belief in them did. In a quiet corner of the city, a new class of trainees filed into their first ethics seminar. A clerk, young, careful, scrolled through archived case files on a dusty touchscreen. Most files were locked behind clearance, but one stood open, unflagged, undeleted. A simple entry dated exactly 12 months prior. I remember Niko Venn. No context, no tags. The clerk tilted his head. He tapped it again, then leaned forward just slightly. And for the briefest moment, something human flickered across his face. Not sadness, not rebellion, just recognition. Then he closed the file and walked out into the morning light.